no official comment has come either from the Defence Department, the government, or Air Services Australia, which monitors aviation safety matters. But we have confirmed that several international flights have now diverted on their path between Australia and New Zealand, and that's directly because of this Chinese task force that has been operating in international waters in the Tasman Sea. You'll recall that these 3 Chinese warships were first alerted by Australian authorities to the public over a week ago when they were gathered in the Coral Sea. They've made their way south, passing within 200 nautical miles of Sydney and continued towards New Zealand. But we are now learning in the past few hours that several pilots have been verbally warned by air traffic controllers to avoid the area where these Chinese warships are conducting exercises. We have no details of what those exercises involve, whether potentially there is any live firing, but certainly there has been diversions of aircraft and warnings given.
That is quite a big development, and as you say, we're still finding out, as you are, Andrew, more details. But just give us a sense of what we've already been able to establish about this naval mission from China. Obviously, it's been in the headlines over the last week. What do we know about what they're doing?
Well, the Australian and New Zealand militaries are trying very hard to monitor precisely what's going on, and they will develop a full assessment, according to the Defence Minister, of what has been going on. But it's been important to know that the Australian military believes it is an unprecedented deployment for 3 People's Liberation Army Navy warships to come so far south in formation to conduct exercises, and to do so with no real formal notice given to the Australian Defence Force. In the past, we have seen Chinese warships all the time off the coast of Australia, just as Australian Navy vessels also travel close to the Chinese mainland. But in this case, it's the way this has been conducted that has piqued a lot of interest and certainly a lot of questions, and why both the Australian and New Zealand militaries are paying very close attention to it.
And Andrew, New Zealand's Defence Minister Judith Collins has spoken about this today, saying that the task force is a wake-up call and should be a reminder that, you know, we're basically not immune just because of our geography. Just give me a sense of what they've had to say and how concerned New Zealand is about this.
Yeah, Judith Collins has been outspoken for a couple of days now, certainly in comments given in the past 24 hours. She described it as unusual behaviour. She said she didn't want it to become the new normal, that Chinese military exercises were being conducted in this part of the world with no notice given. The context of this, of course, is that over a week ago, the Australian Defence Department revealed that there had been a mid-air incident in the South China Sea involving a Royal Australian Air Force surveillance plane that was conducting routine surveillance in international airspace, and a Chinese aircraft which had fired flares within something like 30 metres. So that was considered a dangerous manoeuvre by the People's Liberation Army. And New Zealand is paying very close attention to all of this because of the close proximity to that nation, but also the unprecedented nature of it.
Now, Andrew, in a couple of minutes, I'll actually be speaking to the Foreign Minister, Penny Wong, and of course this is a key issue to raise with her. But just to recap for our viewers, this breaking news. So you have learnt this afternoon that commercial pilots have been asked to avoid the area, for a particular area between New Zealand and Australia, because they believe it could be hazardous. What have they been told about the link between the Chinese naval mission and the airspace?
Look, there is a bit of conjecture about what precisely this advice has said. There have been unconfirmed reports, certainly from aviation sources, that there was a fear that live firing exercises could be taking place imminently, and that was the reason to give advice from air traffic controllers to pilots in this airspace which services flights between the Australian mainland and New Zealand, that it would be a good idea to avoid that area. There's certainly been evidence on open source flight tracking websites that there are planes taking unusual deviations across the Tasman Sea, but as we stated at the start of the program, there's been no formal comment yet from the Defence Department. We're certainly expecting there will be something said later today. And Air Services Australia, importantly, the government agency which controls a lot of airspace in this part of the world, quite beyond even Australian airspace and into international airspace, it too is not commenting formally yet about what has occurred in the past few hours.